Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about all the books that I read in March. March was a really good month for me. I did 16 books. Now a lot of them were novellas, so it did help speed the process along, shorter books and everything. But I am going to go over briefly all the books that I read, what I gave them. So I actually read 3 arcs this month, which was awesome. So the very first book that I read was The Angel of Indian Lake by Stephen Graham Jones. I gave this book 4.5 stars. It is a beautiful end to Jade's story. We get to see Jade as she has been released from prison. She's currently teaching high schoolers, and all of a sudden, as per usual, people start getting murdered, and we see that Jade does not want to be in the middle of it, but of course, where does she end up? In the middle of it. So it's just a really great conclusion. It had me laughing, had me getting emotional, so it was a really good end to the series. Such a great series too. The next book I read was The Push by Ashley Audrain. This book is a trip. It's about a woman who becomes a mother and she does not instantly connect with her firstborn child. She winds up having a second child several years later, and that connection's there. But there's some far out stuff that happens in this book. And we see that the little girl, her firstborn kid, is evil. But the book also tricks you into thinking maybe it's just, her. Maybe she's an unreliable narrator. Maybe she's really not, a bad kid, because everybody else seems to think she's an angel. So anyway, this book was wild. I wound up giving it 4 stars. It was a blast to read. I flew through it in just like 2 days, 2 to 3 days. So really, really fun read, and messed up my mind. The next book I read was HeartShaped Box by Joe Hill. This book is really good. It's a cursed object / haunted object type of book. We have Judas Coin, and he likes to collect weird things. So when he gets an email saying, hey, this suit contains the soul of a dead old man, he's like, yeah, sure, whatever. So he buys it. Well, the suit does in fact contain the soul of a dead old man, but it's a dead old man with a grudge, and this dead old man is not going to leave Jude alone until Jude is dead. So there's a road trip in this to try to get to the root of the problem. There's song references. It's just a really good book. I gave this 4 stars. I enjoyed it a lot. It was fun, and yeah. I listened to this one on audio, and they had tons of sound effects and everything too, so it was really cool. It's one of those books that pulls you in deeper, so I liked it. The next book I read was Linkhun by Ai Jiang, and I'm so sorry if I pronounced that wrong. This book is about grief. We start out with seeing this family that moves into this new house, and this whole city, this whole town is basically a ghost town. If you live in one of the houses, the ghost of whoever you lost will come to you. I don't know what it is, but this town's just a magnet for ghosts. Doesn't matter if they died all over there, they're coming to this house and they're going to talk to you. So we see that this family has moved, and it takes a couple days for the son to appear, but we focus on the daughter, and she obviously is feeling left out. She was forced to move here. She unfortunately, her family is only obsessed with her brother and not her, so she doesn't feel really loved. So the book mainly focuses on that, but you also get to peer into the lives of everybody else around them too. And there's tons of people who will wait out in the yard for one of these houses to go on sale, and they will compete in an auction, which is a free-for-all murder scene, and whoever gets the most coins can win the house. So anyway, it was a really, really good book. It really focused on grief and how everybody deals with it differently. You see the working dad, you see the mother who is obsessed with just having her son back. You see the daughter who has accepted, her brother's gone, but unfortunately nobody around her will give her the attention she deserves. So really good book. I gave it 4 stars. The next book I read was The Perfect Ones by Nicole Hackett, and this book follows 3 different influencers. They're fashion influencers, they're travel influencers, and they get invited to go to this Iceland kind of glacier hike. But somebody has gone missing. Her name is Alabama. and Alabama has gone missing, and it kind of recalls like what has happened before, and then what happens after, and what happens now. So we get to see, you know, what led up to this, what happened to Alabama, and where she is now, question mark. So it was an interesting story. I mean, it definitely had me hooked. Obviously the name Alabama was a little weird, but I mean, I got used to it pretty quick. I mean, people named their kid America, so, but I got used to it pretty quick. But I just kind of wished it dived a little deeper into it. Like, it wasn't necessarily like a thriller, like didn't have that fast-paced, action-packed that I was looking for. It was more of like, you know, we take pictures of this and we hide this. This is really going on in the background, but we got to keep perfect for Instagram or whatever social media site we're on. So, I mean, it definitely had some deeper meaning, but unfortunately it just didn't hit where I wanted it to hit. So I gave it 3 stars. The next book I read was a novella, and it was The Reyes Incident by Brianna Morgan. So this book, pretty much all you need to know is it's found footage, like it's police interviewing a girl who survived a killer mermaid attack that happened in a flooded bunker. And yeah, that's pretty much all you need to know. I gave it 4 stars. It's definitely interesting. It was a pretty fast read, and I mean, I was hooked. I wanted to see what happened to the kids. There are a few moments that fell flat for me, but overall I enjoyed it. Book number 7 is Magnum Opus by Caitlin Marceau. This book, if you've read Yellowface, it's very similar. So we have 2 authors, and one is getting her book published, and then the other one announces, oh my gosh, our books are getting published on the same day. And this person, whatever she writes, is pure gold. So of course we have the jealousy monster. So something happens, and the perfect writer winds up dying at her house, the author who never, you know, gets the spotlight. So of course she gets the spotlight turned on her a little bit, but if you've read The Telltale Heart or, you know, seen a movie on it, you kind of know that that guilt is eating you away. So we get to see guilt and the cost of fame and stardom and everything. So I really like this book. It's only like, I think 70 pages or something like that. So it was a really quick read. I read it on Kindle Unlimited, and I gave it 5 stars. I mean, it was a blast to read and very scary in some parts. The next book I read was also a novella. I was on kind of like a novella streak, and it's Unboxed, which is a play by Brianna Morgan. So this book basically reads out like a play. You have a YouTuber who is trying to hit that 1 million subscribers, and he wants to kind of spice it up. He's a paranormal investigator, talker, and he wants to spice up his YouTube and do something more dangerous. So he orders a mystery box off the dark web, and he lets something evil into his house, and he has to pay the consequences for this. So this book was a blast. I mean, I think it's only about, I don't know, 80 pages, I think. So I read it really fast. I gave it 4 stars. It was fun. Next up, we have Ein Hollow by Tim McGregor. And this book is kind of, it's a historical horror mixed in with Frankenstein and then the legend of Ein Hollow. So super cool book. It's about this small isle. There's like 4 families living on it, and we focus on Agnes's family. She has a couple kids, a deadbeat husband, and one day this mysterious stranger rows to the land, and he sets up shop in one of the houses that, you know, nobody lives in, and he is doing something behind the screens or scenes. He's like a scientist. And so anyway, he decides to hire Agnes as like his maid and his cook. So she goes over there like once a day and will do stuff, and she kind of starts falling for him a bit, but there's something looming on the island, and it's super big and super scary. So anyway, this book was so much fun. It reminded me of Slewfoot in the best way possible. And yeah, I gave it 5 stars. It was just an absolute blast from start to finish, and it gets very emotional near the end, and I loved it. Okay, next up I read Sundial by Catriona Ward, and this book is a domestic horror, like a true domestic horror. So we have Rob and her husband, and her husband is toxic. He's awful. I hated every second that he was on screen, on the audio. I hated it. And he's basically very abusive to her, pretty much just verbally, but he has been physically abusive in the past, but she threatened him and it just turned to verbal abuse. But anyway, she has 2 kids. One seems to be an angel, one seems to be the devil. So she decides, I'm gonna take her out to Sundial, where I used to live, where her family had like a, it was almost like a cult, but not exactly a cult. But anyway, her family had like an experiment base there, and they would do experiments on dogs to see if they can get the bad dogs to turn into good dogs with like a brain implant, I think. But anyway, she takes her daughter Callie out here just to try to talk to her and reveal all the truths to her. And while they're there, some truths really do come to light. We get to see how Rob grew up, what happened to her sister Jack, and just go over all of her history and, you know, how Callie came to be and so on and so forth. And it was a ride, and there was a plot twist at the end that was like, whoa. So I gave this one 4 stars. It's definitely a family horror at its roots. I think that was the scariest part. There wasn't like a whole bunch of scary monster parts. It was more, oh my gosh, this is a horrible family. And speaking of horrible families, the next book I read was Little Eve, which was also by Catriona Ward. And this was our Creep It Real book club pick for March, because our March theme was cults, and Little Eve is about a cult that lives on like a little island almost, but it's connected to the mainland. They have their own like little mansion, and they worship the Adler, and the Adler is going to bring about the end of the world. And so these people will go to like any lengths to prove their faith. Like Eve literally takes like a freaking needle to her eye and like gouges it out to earn back the trust of the people in this household. And I mean, they're all viewed as family, and it's just messed up. The scariest parts about this one as well were the family dynamics and how extreme these people were willing to go to prove their faith. Like, whew. But I gave this one 4 stars. It's definitely a slower read, but the tension that it builds up is just wow. The next book I read was Horror Movie by Paul Tremblay, and this book is coming out in June. Definitely pre-order it because it was fantastic. So it follows this movie that only had 3 released scenes. They were uploaded to YouTube, and then the manuscript from the movie was also released as well. And we see that the thin kid is the only survivor from this original movie. Everybody else who worked on this very amateur movie is dead, whether by natural causes or weird, suspicious things. So anyway, Hollywood is remaking the movie, or rebooting the movie, and they decide, hey, thin kid, you want to help us direct it? Hey, thin kid, you want to be in it for a little while? You want to be the monster again? So we see he's in his like 50s now, but he goes back and he helps direct the movie, helps film the movie, and we get to see flashbacks of the actual movie and what happened on set and the tragedy that happened on set. So this book was really good. It took me a little while to get into it because the writing was a little confusing at first, but once I got into it, I got into it. Next up was another short story, like novella collection, and it was You Don't See Me by M. Marquez. I was reached out on Instagram, and Twins and Talents reached out to me, and they wanted to see if I would like a ebook, like copy of this book, just to kind of, you know, read and review. And I was like, sure, why not? So I did it. My copy was only about 70 pages, I think, so it was not super long. It has several little short horror stories. They were all relatively good in my eyes. There was like everyday creepy things that could happen to you, so I wound up enjoying it a lot. I gave it 4 stars, and yeah, I mean, it's a super quick read. It's out right now, so you can go, I think you can read it on Kindle Unlimited, or you can go buy it on, you know, paperback, ebook, whatever you want to do. Next up, we have Hiding Lies by Stephanie Rose, and this is another ARC. I told you I was on like an ARC roll this month. So this book follows a forensic photographer. She had a very, very troubled life when she was young. She's still trying to get over that. And she gets to work on this very high profile possible serial killer case. So this is kind of like a cat and mouse game. We go back and forth between Lydia, our main character, and Adam, who is the serial killer in question. And we kind of see that this is like a love story as well as like a very messed up, disturbing story. And I'm gonna tell you right now, this book is not for everyone. It is very, very dark, but I liked it. So if you're a fan of like You, or even what was the other one I compared this to? Oh yeah, You or Butcher and the Wren, this book would be perfect for you. It is a very back and forth cat and mouse game of serial killer and the person who's trying to catch them. And I gave that one 4.5 stars. I mean, it was a blast. It's a debut. And Stephanie Rose actually runs Death by TBR Books, which is a bookshop. You can find her on Instagram, and you can also go and shop her website, and I buy from there all the time. Sometimes I get like extra goodies in my packages, and I love it. All right, the next book that I read was Tender is the Flesh by Augustina Bazterrica. I hope I said that right. Yes, this is a very, oh, I guess I could showcase this one. I like how I didn't show any of the other books. I'm just getting back into this. Anyway, Little Eve, Sundial, and here we are. So Tender is the Flesh by Augustina Bazterrica. So this book, I'm sure you know it by now. I'm probably beating a dead horse here, but just in case you're new to horror and you lived under a rock, this book is a dystopian future where animals have a zoonotic disease that if you eat them, you die, basically. You get the disease and die. So people have had to switch to an alternative meat. And this alternative meat is, drumroll please, you guessed it, humans. So they have like sectioned off certain groups of humans, and they basically raise them as cattle. And it's very, very, very messed up book. Surprisingly, it was not as gross as I thought it would be. I was eating a beef stick while I was reading this, so don't know what that says about me, but I did enjoy it. I gave it 3.5 stars because while it has a very deeper meaning and a very good message, there were parts of this book that I did not love. Sometimes the book was a little boring, and then that ending, well, I don't like to talk about that ending because that ending makes me want to something. Anyway, I'm going off kilter, but yeah, overall I do think it's worth a read. It's a very, I'm gonna sound fancy here, a very poignant read, and I do think it's worth your time, but obviously go into it knowing it is gross. There are some horrible scenes in here, so just be prepared. This may be a book that you need to step away from and come back to, or maybe a book that you need to step away from permanently. And if you can't read it, don't feel bad. I mean, it's gross. The very last book I read, I guess this is technically an arc too, so I guess I read 4 arcs this month, but it is The Dead Spot, Stories of Lost Girls by Angela Sylvain. And so the author reached out to me on Instagram, asked if I would like a copy of the book in exchange for an honest review, and I was like, heck yeah. So this is a short story collection. It has several short stories. Some of them are like super freaky. Like there's this one where it's almost like the Crooked Man and the Babadook looking like thing, and it like can unhinge its jaw and eat you while you're sleeping, and oh, that one gave me the heebie-jeebies. But I did overall really like it. Like I didn't have like a bad experience with any of the stories. They were all very entertaining. They were short, sweet, to the point, while still very scary. So I gave this 4 stars. Great read. Go follow the author on Instagram. Just go pre-order. I think it comes out in May. Wow, so that was my 16 book wrap up. I think I did okay. Guess I'll see when I review this footage, but anyway, I really hope you enjoy this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you do, and leave a comment down below. Tell me how many books you read this month, what one was your favorite, and yeah. So anyway, thanks for watching.